Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Interfaith Partnership's series on the world's religions. I'm David Oughton, past president of Interfaith Partnership of St. Louis. You see on the first slide the announcement for our annual dinner that will be on Thursday evening, October 28th at the Hindu Temple of St. Louis. And the Buddhist, Hindu, and Sikh communities are joining together in order to host this special event. This year, we are honoring two people for their many years of interfaith work. Merrill Walters of the Church of Christ Scientist and Swami Chaitanyananda, the senior minister of the Vedanta Society. And if you would like to sign up for this event, just go to interfaithstl.org/celebrate. And there will be options for in-person attendance and also virtual viewing of the program. The mission of Interfaith Partnership is to deepen understanding, respect, and appreciation among all persons across lines of religious difference. And our motto is, as communities of faith, we agree to differ, promise to love, and unite to serve. And if you would like to make a donation to Interfaith Partnership to promote programs like this and our other programs, you can send a donation on the internet by interfaithstl.org/donate, or you can simply mail your check to the Interfaith Partnership office on Clayton Road. Now, if you would like to see a particular program in this series but cannot see it live, then simply ask Jasminder Singh, our office administrator, at admin@interfaithstl.org to send you the link of how you can see a particular recording. And if you have any questions about tonight's program, simply type in your question in the bottom Q&A option. Simply put your cursor at the bottom and click on Q&A and type in your question. And we'll hopefully get to as many of those as we can at the end of tonight's program. Now we have three special guests who are leaders of different Buddhist communities. First, we have Dr. Kongsak Tempajit, who is a medical doctor who grew up in Thailand. He's one of the leaders of the Thai Theravada Buddhist temple, Wat Prasiratanaram, which is in Florissant, Missouri. Then we have Venerable Jaewang, who is one of the leaders of the Chinese Mahayana Buddhist temple, Fo Gang Shang in Bridgeton, Missouri. And Dr. Rosan Yoshida from the Japanese Soto Zen Buddhist temple, in Webster Groves, the Missouri Zen Center. So thank you all for being with me tonight. And 2 weeks ago, then we focused on Hinduism. And last week we focused on Sikhism. So tonight we focus on Buddhism, another religion that began in India. And first of all, I'd ask you to give us a little personal background about your life as a Buddhist and your ordinary life. So let me start with you, Dr. Tempajit. I know that when you were growing up in Thailand, for a while you had been a Buddhist monk. Could you describe that experience for us, please?
When I was 20 years old, traditionally, like a gentleman in Thailand would be ordained as a monk for a short period of time, and you can leave that at any time you want. So it's traditionally I joined for 5 weeks, and I was very fortunate. I have my preceptor was a late Supreme Patriot of Thailand, as well as I also studied under another great meditation master, Venerable Longta Mahabua, both of them enlightened beings. So I was very fortunate during that time to learn from the best.
And what did you do during those 5 weeks? What did you practice?
Basically, you become a monk in Theravada Buddhism. That means you shave my head and include my eyebrows and nothing to eat, no solid food after 12 noon, and practice celibacy and study the discipline and the Dharma teaching of the Buddha, as well as practicing meditation a lot during that time, and go out for morning alms round every morning. Right when you start to see light at dawn, you start going out and get food and come back to the temple. Usually about 7:30 or 8, you start having your breakfast, and maybe late in the morning you have lunch before noon, and then that's it for the solid food. After that, you will be learning, studying, and practicing meditation.
And after that experience, then you eventually went on to medical school and became a medical doctor. And now you're in private practice here in the St. Louis area.
Correct. I'm also a professor of clinical medicine at Washington University, and also chairman of Buddhist Council of Greater St. Louis here. Because of my background in Buddhism, that I have my own interest in that. I put into, like, we have the Thai temple over here in Florissant, St. Louis, Missouri here, and then basically we invite a monk over here, and we have a nice temple. Anyone can join. At the end, we can talk about it.
Okay. And Venerable Jaewon, you're a Buddhist nun. So why did you decide to be a nun, and how did that come about?
Yes, the reason why I become a nun, Buddhist nun, because that it was a long time ago, because I actually I have changes my like goal of my life, right? Everyone has your goal of life, and when I was a child, and I wanted to become a policewoman, because social justice, come back with the crime, put every bad guy behind the bar, and I think that the world will be, in good shape, and it be peace, right? But this is too sometimes it's too naive after I grow up. So I decided to not just putting people or becoming a law enforcer, but maybe it's like go to law school. So I had my political science I had in college, because I want to go to law school so that I can kind of like debate or protect the good people. Okay, so but after that, it is the time when I got a time to get in touch with Buddhism, know more about Buddhism. So and I believe, and I found out that if people not changing their behavior, then there is no use for law and order, outside to change, really changing the people to do good. So that is the reason why I started to think about maybe it is more, going to touch the core of the human society to change the world by being a Buddhist, and also being a Buddhist monastic. Then that can be, changing people, then you may change the world. So that is the reason why I become the Buddhist nun. And actually, I really like the monastic life also, because during my college life, I spent 3 years living in the monastery or a temple. So I really like the simpleness, and it is just, it's very harmonious. So very happy there. So that is the reason why I became a Buddhist nun.
Thank you. And Rosan, why did you become a Zen master?
When I was working for Hitachi, every day I saw the newspaper pictures of Vietnam War. sometimes children, naked children running in the field, the pistol at the temple, and shooting. And also I saw pictures of women really skinny, I mean, almost like bones covered by skin after they were found at the in camp. So I wanted to work to decrease discrimination, war, etc. And I thought there's a way. Religion is a reunion with the holy, wholesome whole. And Buddhist seemed very scientific and peaceful. And especially Zen is very practical. That's why I started and want to share it.
And so you moved then from Japan here to the United States, and you've lived here in St. Louis for a long time. What do you do as a Zen master?
I sit with people together every morning and evening, and communicate through website, blogs, etc. Writing books.
And at the end of tonight's program, we'll see some pictures of each of your temples. So let's now get into Buddhism, beginning with who the Buddha was. So what does the title Buddha mean, and who was the Buddha?
Well, he's the enlightened one. That's what's the meaning of the Buddha. He was born as a crown prince to the Shakya dynasty in southern Nepal currently. Used to be like India and the whole continent there. And basically, that was 2,644 years ago. So he lived to be 80 years old, died at the age of 90. But he was crown prince for 29 years. And then he found that the life, even though it's a luxurious life, he still have the inner suffering that he can feel and see the sign of aging, sickness, and death, and saw a sign of ascetic, which is very peaceful. So he renunciated and left the palace and became ascetic for 6 years, searching for the truth, and finally attained enlightenment at the age of 35. And he taught this Four Noble Truth, dependent arising, and this teaching that, as I say, this Buddhism occurred overnight under the Bodhi tree when he attained enlightenment, fully formed as a whole teaching. So he preached the same thing, and there were several followers that attained enlightenment in thousands during that time. And he taught the same message for 45 years and passed away 2,564 years ago. That's in our Theravada 12. A little variation in Mahayana, they have 60 years difference, shorter.
And what was the Buddha's name when he was a prince?
He was Prince Siddhartha. You can still visit this town called Kapilavastu in southern Nepal currently.
Mm-hmm.
And some mile there was an old stupa, and the city there is still some ruins and remnant that they had excavated and still found the place, including one place nearby at Rivana, and they found the Buddhist relics in one of the stupa, the old stupa. They discovered about in the 1700 by Pepys, and then later on, 100 years later, the Indian scholar, archaeologists also discovered more remnant in there, more relics in there of the same stupa, and was given to the king of Thailand afterwards.
So the Buddha was a real human being who lived 2,500 years ago, you say? Prince
Yeah,
Siddhartha?
and the relics is still housed in the Golden Mountain in Bangkok. I visit every year when I go back home.
Mhm.
In Bangkok, in the Golden Mountain. The king have kept the relics over there, most of them, most of the Buddha's relics. The Viceroy of India gave it to the king of Thailand, Rama V, about 150 years ago.
And you had mentioned how Prince Siddhartha went through different stages in his life, from a prince to someone who gave up pleasure to becoming known as the Buddha when he was
Correct.
35 years old.
Correct. He found that's not the real happiness. And then when his son was born, he found that's become another bondage for him to that he cling to. And finally, he let go of that, tried to seek for the truth, to come back and teach them, to make them to liberate not only himself, to liberate his wife, children, his father, his parents, and all the humankind as well.
And Jaywon, is there anything you'd want to add about the life of the Buddha?
Okay. Buddha means awakened one from the long night of nightmare of nescience. The original word nescience is avidya, avijja. Vidya is Latin videre, witnessing, or English witness. Witnessing the state of no karma. This is a very important, unique point of Buddhism. Usually we are all, as Buddha said, karma heirs, karma owners, karma machine, and though we can rely on it to change bad karma to good karma. But anyway, we usually work, function like a robot, driven by karma. And nirvana means no wind of karma. Karma wind blowing us up and down. But when you sit still, you can still karma and reach nirvana. No karma influence, not blown.
Okay.
Only then we can witness the state of the world and mind, that there is no influence of karma. So that's a very unique point of Buddhism, aiming at stealing karma, seeing it, and witnessing this state constantly. And from there, we can start wakeful life with prognosis. Prajna is prognosis and insight. So the Buddhist goal is reaching nirvana, attaining awakening.
To become Buddhas ourselves, then, if we can become awakened.
Right, anyone can sit still and steal karma and see the dharma, truth, law of everything, dependent origination, and apply it.
Okay, you just gave a lot of Buddha's teaching and the practice of Zen. Let me get back to Jaywon. Anything about the life of the Buddha that you think we should know about?
Oh, actually, he has, of course, he has gone through a lot of stages, and from Prince to the Buddha, the enlightened ones. So it's kind of like a very, very great change, and that we never been imagined. So actually, he has gone through the reason why, and for his determination to have this, bridging out, is that he went through during his princehood, one day he went to, as we said, the four doors or four gates. So he met a sickness and an old man, and also a funeral, and also a priest, okay? or like like someone who practiced the spiritual practicing, right? And he witnessed this, and then he turns to like he changes his world, okay? And he thought that he has to go to see the solutions for sickness and for the aging and also for the death. So that is the reason why he became an ascetic, or he learned from different, he went, he became a monastic or ascetic and learned from different teachers. And finally, he think that this is not really the ultimate way to reach his goal. Okay? So then he left the asceticism practice and then meditated under the Bodhi tree. Then that time, after several days of meditation, and he realized the truth. Okay? Then that is what has mentioned by Dr. Yoshida about like dependent origination, for noble truth. Later we will talk about. So that I think this is very crucial for it's kind of like a turnaround to a prince become an enlightened person.
So Prince Siddhartha grew up, of course, in India in a Hindu culture. So how do you think Buddha's teaching was different from the Hinduism of his day? Kongsak?
I think the main message is that he discovered that things that come into existence, there's a cause to it. It doesn't exist by itself, called cause and effect, law of causation. And for the mental world, this is called dependent arising, which sum up in the Four Noble Truths. This is the big difference in Hinduism, that he reject the idea of called Ittata Sutra, that it's not something that you create by God or Supreme Being. And he denied the idea of this is a fixed karma. You cannot change. Like tomorrow it'll be this incident, it'll be like that, or you're gonna be stepping over a cat or whatever, or something like that, and you're gonna be fixed. No, he denied that. And third is no reason for such thing to appear. It occurs by itself, spontaneously, for no cause or reason. He rejects all that, but then he point out everything comes to exist from cause and effect. So there's no Atman or the big I or big ego. In fact, he taught the opposite, or the anatta, anatman. Anatta means selfless or not self in nature, which sum up in the three universal characteristics, or three universal marks of existence, mainly impermanence or unstable, imperfection or unbearable, and selflessness or not self or uncontrollable, unstable, unbearable, uncontrollable, which is the true nature of things. When you practice insight meditation, you come to see the true nature of things. You witness it with your mind, you absorb it in completely, and you see your mind become disenchanted, discern, and liberate when you see the true nature of it. Not worth clinging to. And you kind of like reject your own ego concept, which is illusory image that you generate when you encounter any object or environment. You generate a sense of self in the act of knowing, which is not truly there. With the pure perception, you can see it with mindful awareness. It cut loose of this self-concept and free yourself, liberate yourself into nirvana, the ultimate peace and happiness.
That gets us then to what's called the Four Noble Truths or the Four Holy Truths that the Buddha taught, which would be a summary of his philosophy of life. What are those four teachings?
They are like suffering as the first one, because your mind reaching outwards, never satisfied. The second is the cause of suffering is caused by your mind reaching outward, which is basically embedded by craving with sensual desire, liking or disliking, or greed-hatred delusion, basically. So these are the arising pathway of the dependent arising. And then the third noble truth is the end of suffering, or nirodha, or nirvana, ultimate peace and happiness, free of self-concept, and become selfless in nature. And then the fourth is the middle path to purify as being, basically not going to too extreme of self-mortification or sensual indulgence. We have the Noble Eightfold Path, right view, right thought, which deal with wisdom, right speech, right action, right livelihood, deal with morality, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, deal with mental concentration. So morality, concentration, and wisdom are the three pillars that will advance you to see this cause of suffering and end it. Basically, your mind, see your mind clearly as a result, which is a middle path. With the result, mind, see your mind clearly. There's no true self there. Become self that you become disenchanted, discern, liberate. That's the third noble truth, liberation, nirvana.
And Jaewon, you just heard about the Eightfold Path to Nirvana. What is the Buddhist symbol then?
Okay, so actually there is a very round symbol that you can see in sometimes in temples or in some paintings, and especially in Tibetan temple. There is a rooftop of on their rooftop there is a round shape. It looks like the wheel in the front. It's a round shape, and so and with two deers, okay, facing to the round shape wheel. So and there is actually there is an 8-spoke wheel, and that it represents the 8 noble path. Right? But why do we use wheel? Right? So the wheel actually denote from Hindu ideal king. It's called Chakravati, I think. Right? So it means wheel turner. So this is is an ideal king, and he will possess a wheel, and so to kind of like destroy all the badness. So that is their, like Hindu ideal king. And so that is a cultural side of, Buddhism, and that influenced by the Hindu culture. And so we use the wheel to represent that the Buddha actually is also a king that can destroy all the defilements and all the, like a false, fake theories. And so depict the truth, and so that and it will be kind of like it will lead us to the liberation. So that is the reason why we use the wheel, and an 8-spoke of that on the wheel. It represents the 8 noble the Noble Eightfold Path. So that is the turning. When we say that is turning the Dharma wheel, it means that the Buddha is teaching, and it describes the Buddha is teaching, and so and he is teaching the very basic ideas, which is the Noble Eightfold Path.
And Rosan,
Yes.
one of those spokes in the Eightfold Path is right action. So what are the basic commandments that all Buddhists are supposed to follow? What are they supposed to do and not supposed to do?
There's a famous verse common to 7 Buddhas, doing no evils, doing all good, purifying the mind. This is a message of all Buddhas. So to do that, we need to see the whole perspective. By the way, the common way of calling for noble truths and eightfold noble paths, mistranslation. The original word Arya is Greek hagia, English holy. That means holy, wholesome way, or all-inclusive, universal truth or way. So when we seek that universal truth, that is dependent origination, like causality law, cause and effect, but not stress on conditions. For an apple tree to grow, we need temperature, air, etc., all provided. Then only it can grow and bear fruits. Same way, in solving the suffering, we need to go back to the original root. That is craving, thirst, like wanting to drink even seawater, which makes more thirsty. That is karma, coming from karma. So these holy truths and holy ways are applicable to anyone to solve our problems and sufferings. By the way, another thing I want to add, the biggest difference of Buddhism from all religions, not only Hinduism. Hinduism tells unity of Atman and Brahman. But Buddhist tells no self. When you understand causality law with limitless conditions, then there's no self-sameness of any phenomenon, and no self-sovereignty. From these two, no substantial self, no permanent sovereign self. We are in the matrix, which is often compared to the intranet. In that, we must accept all things, and we must act. Only in that way we can have a right action. So this unique point of no self is the way to solve all problems, because all our problems come from the triple poisons of desire, divisiveness, and delusion. The root is delusion of the permanent self or sovereign self. That becomes individualism, nationalism, or whatever. So we need to go back to that and see the universal truth and need to act in universal ethic.
So because of those Buddhist teachings, what then are some ethical commandments that Buddhists are supposed to follow? Kongsak?
As we find in 10 Commandments and 10 precepts in Buddhism, no killing, because that's an essential first need to live. Unless we don't live, we can't do anything. So no killing of life. Not only humans, but other beings too. And then next one is material support, no stealing. And the next one is social unity, no lying. And in generation-wise, no sexual misconduct. And those are common to 10 commandments or 10 precepts.
Okay.
Which-
Kongsak or Jaewon, any other things that Buddhists are supposed to do or not supposed to do because of Buddha's teaching?
Sometimes they add no intoxicant too, because that would dull your, that's the fifth precept, not to dull your mindfulness and self-awareness, which is important because self-awareness is your wisdom. If you let it dull, then you're just being blind. And that's why you see like father got drunk and have incest and so on, not only in this country and other world around, all around the world. It's like that because the lack of this mindful awareness, which is the key in Buddhism to practice on it. The five precepts that Rosan was talking before, and this is the fifth one, it's enough to lead you to enlightenment as a moral pathway, pave the way for you to develop mental concentration and gain wisdom to see the truth, realize the truth of impermanence, imperfection, selflessness, and attain nirvana, and so on. So that's the key to it. That's the golden rule in Buddhism. I think it's also a golden rule of ancient time as well. And we adopt that. And it sometimes flourish into the opposite end as well. In the skillful mean, wholesome act as not killing, that means you respect other people's life as well as your own. Don't commit suicide. And no stealing, you respect other people's properties. And no sexual misconduct, you respect other people's body. And then no lying, respect yourself, live a truthful life. And fifth one, also respect yourself by don't dull your mind with intoxicant like drug or alcohol, or something that too much it would dull it.
By the way, may I add one thing? As I and Dave worked for many years, global ethic. The 5 precepts, the brief version of 10 precepts is considered as a global ethic. So the Parliament of the World Religions issued this global ethic to observe no killing, no stealing, and no lying, and equal partnership between men and women. I think we need to observe this beyond nationalism, nation, or race, or religions.
Now, all three of you, of course, would agree on many teachings of the Buddha, but after the Buddha died then, at the age of 80, eventually the scriptures were developed over a period of several centuries. And Buddhism then, I think, spread to different parts of Asia. And you yourselves represent different countries within Asia. And we've heard the words already of Theravada, Mahayana, and Zen. I was wondering if you could now say about your particular branch of Buddhism, your particular approach to Buddhism, and how it might be different from the other branches. Okay, so let's start with Kongsak, and then Jaewon, and then Rosan.
I'm from the Southern school. The word of the elder, they call it Theravada. Thera mean elder. Vada mean the words of the elder. Basically, it's not their word, it's a word of Buddha. When he passed away, parinirvana, at the age of 80, they have the first council. Council here is different than the Vatican Council. It's just rehearsal about what the Buddha is teaching and agree upon, and then they recite it and memorize it. It was orally recited for 432 years before it's written down into palm leaves and so on. 111 BC. that was first written down, but orally recited is more accurate because you can prompt each other, this is a mistake and so on. It's more respectful in that regard until it becomes difficult with the local warfare. It's hard to keep the monks that knowledgeable like that. So this passed on to India, to Sri Lanka, which is the main hub of Buddha's teaching of the Theravada. It took 7 months for them to come up with this first council. And then the second council 100 years later, when people deviate from the Buddhist rules, the Buddhist teaching, the discipline. And then 235 years of Buddhism in the Ashoka the Great has summed up the third council and spread 9 branches all over through Southeast Asia, into the Afghan area, also some part to Middle East as well, and so to China as well. So there were like nine missionaries that went out at that time, and some of them came to the Golden Peninsula, which is Thailand and Burma currently, and one down south to Sri Lanka. And so from Sri Lanka, there was a hub when to spread into like Thailand, Burma, because this is a long era, 2,600 years. And so some period has Buddhism from Mahayana, from the northern school, some southern school. But the southern school spread mainly to Sri Lanka, Burma, or Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and some part of southern Vietnam has that. Indonesia used to be Theravada, but turned into Mahayana, the northern school. There's another school called Vajrayana, which is in Tibet. We will come back with that.
So in the Theravada, Southern Asian approach to Buddhism, how do you view the Buddha? Do you think he was a divine or a god, or do you pray to Buddha?
No, he's just like a person, like all of us, a human being, but he was the enlightened. He's a teacher. We respect him a lot. We don't pray as a worshiping. No, we pray because we pay respect to him. What we recite is his virtue. Like he's a self-enlightened, he's a great teacher, and no one can teach him like him, and so on. Mm-hmm. And Dharma is about the truth that you have to experience yourself. So we recite the virtue of those things, not praying for him as worshiping. We just pay respect and try to pursue his path. He had 3 virtues: purity, compassion, and wisdom. We try to copy him in that regard, to be enlightened, follow him, the follower of Buddha. Everyone can have that capability. Buddha see that you can nurture into the enlightened being.
So he was the great teacher and an example for you then.
Right, we revere him as such.
And Jaewon, then eventually Buddhism would have spread northward in Asia to China. How does Mahayana Buddhism disagree with Theravada Buddhism on who was the Buddha?
Okay, so this disagreement, yes. Actually, we have some discussions, okay, about the Buddha. Okay, so I think that it is because how we view the Buddha, because he is our teacher, right? So Theravada Buddhism tend to just, kind of like set the Buddha as a human beings, but Mahayana is more like it has emphasize on his supernatural or kind of like Buddhahood is not just as a human being, but it's more like a supranatural abilities of liberating people. Okay, so there, if you have read the Mahayana textbook, you will see there is magical powers of the Buddha, and then also the bodhisattvas. So that is kind of like describing the Buddha. Okay, this is not just a human beings, but a state of Buddhahood, how the Buddha in his state of the Buddhahood, right? Or, like beyond some human behaviors, right? And that is and the image of this kind of like supernatural Buddha actually came up with some historical background, but maybe it's not very, no time. But there is some, some articles talking about it. So maybe you can, read it in the Tricycle magazines. And so that is the Mahayana view about it. But for my, denomination, because we are originally Chan lineage, so it's like a Rinzai Zen lineage. So we tend to go back to more like a human or against those, some of the supernatural, or even we will be just, kind of like against all the forms of Buddha image, or even treating the Buddha as a teacher, right? Or a person, or a cat, or someone who can, kind of like save us or teach us. So we are kind of like, against those things. So that is Rinzai Zen. But so we go back to, we call it humanistic Buddhism. It is more like practicing Buddhism in our daily life. So not just, treating Buddha as a supernatural beings, or, like we are more like going back to the middle path, not just, to the extreme. Yeah.
And Rosan, how does Zen Buddhism view the Buddha?
Okay, the Brahma Visuddhi Sutra is what Buddha taught. It said when the Buddha enjoyed Nirvana, he wanted to stay there in the forest, not going out in the world where everything is in problems and sufferings. Then Brahma, the supreme being, besought him to go out. Otherwise, the world will be destroyed. This delusion, the root cause of all our problems and sufferings, will destroy the world. That's why after his awakening, he spent 2 nights in the same place, just wandering, always going to share what he found, that everyone can attain Buddhahood, Nirvana, and become awakened. And only when everybody becomes Buddha, we can solve the world problems. And this key point is exactly what he did and Zen does. He always, every day, practiced sitting meditation and never stopped it, because it's a key route to Nirvana. Zen is to sit still and see the karma, steer the karma, and change bad karma to good karma, and share. That's a bodhisattva way. The Buddha first started his pursuit of truth and he found the means to solve all problems, all suffering, birth, death, aging, whatever. And this is sitting and going beyond all karmic world, karmic thinking, emotions, fear, anxiety, etc.
And
And from there only we can find the solution, like prognosis for holy truth and eightfold holy path.
And we'll see some pictures of your temples to see how people in your branch of Buddhism would sit and meditate then. Kongsak, there's another school of Buddhism that some people have heard about, Tibetan Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism. And could you explain just a little bit about that approach?
Vajrayana Buddhism basically consider themselves as a third branch of Buddhism besides Mahayana and Theravada. Most people would consider them as part of Mahayana, but when you talk to the Rinpoche and some of the Tibetan monks, they consider themselves as a third branch because some of their school incorporate both teaching and as well as their own, which combines some of the local beliefs, the Oban and so on, the local beliefs and so on into Buddhism. But they're like, their practice of Buddhism in that school is mainly in Tibet, Bhutan, and some part of Nepal, as well as Mongolia. But mostly Bhutan is all Tibetan Buddhism, Vajrayana. And there are four main schools, like the Nyingma, which follow the first ancient tradition, Pattamasamphava, that went on in the 4th century. And established the meditative school there, and the Nyingma, the Kagyo, this is Tilopa and so on, Milarepa school, and then the Shakya, this is more the lineage and the family lineage, and the Kalumpa, which is His Holiness Dalai Lama belong to that, the latest school in the 13th century. But they emphasize more of the philosophical aspect. Overall, Tibetan Buddhism they consider themselves to be somewhat esoteric Buddhism. They have, you cannot simply enlighten by sitting meditating by themselves. They have some other technique to help to attain enlightenment, such as mudra, like a hand movement like this, which has gesture to mean certain thing. In the mantra, you recite mantras, some of them, like Professor Hussein Smith recorded, like the monk was chanting in the 2 octaves, which is not possible. So he recorded, bring it back to the professor of physics here at WashU, and wrote up a big article. But now we see in Mongolia, in part of Russia, people do the oral harp, and then they sing in 3 octaves, and echoing in your sinus and so on, which is possible. I witnessed that 4 or 5 times during the trip to Russia and Mongolia. And basically and also they do mandala. Mandala is like periphery, like the cosmos of the universe, and the kalpa, which is the bodhisattva, and so on. So they belong to that aspect about bodhisattva in that school. So there's many aspects in there.
And of course, the leader?
The leader is His Holiness Dalai Lama. He's the 14th Dalai Lama, belong to Kalumpa, the yellow hat, and basically he's a reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama, and the manifestation of the Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva, as the human form to lead people to enlightenment. And he's a champion. He's a Nobel laureate in 1969, and he also championed in the leading human being, also in this country, many books about Buddhism and compassion in the social aspect as well. And also his forefront in full science, new finding like psychology, psychology, also cosmology, quantum physics, and psychiatry as well, 4 aspects that he was forefront in that. So he had like at least 14, 15 mind science meeting with leading scientists around the world that bring up a lot of new knowledge to people, updating. And now one of his major students is Richard Davidson in U of Wisconsin, Professor Richard Davidson. He's a PhD in psychiatry, and he had to do a lot of functional MRI scan and tell you when you meditate, where is your brain function. The insula get thicker, the frontal lobe get thicker from being more aware of himself, and your brain shift from the right to the left, like signifying happiness and so on. They use Tibetan monk that meditate 15,000 hours, at least 10 years of meditation to clarify this nature. So he bring up a lot of advancement and kind of like to show that Buddhism and science can coincide, because each of us want to seek the truth. We seek the truth in the mental aspect, and the science usually only do the physical aspect, but Buddhism take both. And now scientists start to question what we observe may be reflections of our mind. Because like you can tell yourself you were angry or delighted. No one can see it for you. You use your mind to perceive that, which science in the past denied that, but now they prove it through functional MRI scan and so on, and brain waves.
And Jaewon, could you explain to us the role of women in Buddhism?
Okay, yes, because I'm a Buddhist nun, right? So okay, so actually, women in Buddhism is quite equal to males' role, and when we talk about the community or the sangha, actually, if it is in the scripture, sangha actually usually means the monastics. And but actually, when we talked about Buddhist community, there is always mentioned about something called fourfold community that encompass the monastics, both male and female, and also laymen and laywomen. Right? And so and it was treated by the Buddha as a 4 pillar of the Buddhist teachings. So actually, you can when you are reading the scriptures, actually you can find quite a handful of the scriptures talking about what a particular laywoman have done to the monastics, or how she was holding the household and giving the teachings and remembering the teachings. And also there is some sutta called there, not a sutta, but it is in it is in what's that, Nikaya, right? Okay, it's called Terikata. Okay, so this is a poem made by the female senior nuns. Okay, so describing their spiritual practices, spiritual experience, experiences. So, but we have a few, but we can kind of like seeing this, and we can know what's happening in of the role of the woman in Buddhism. So actually, women in Buddhism still for the laywomen, they serve as a supportive force to the sangha, and also for the nuns or for the female monastics, actually it was being agreed upon, or kind of like the Buddha also admit, or kind of like saying some of the female monastics, they are quite quite practiced very well, just like Sariputra, which is who is the very famous disciple or the major disciple of the female monastic or sangha, so or male sangha. So actually, for women in Buddhism, actually are treated equally as as a male. So there is no right or there's lower status quo or of compared to the male, and we believe that female can also be liberated as men do. So that is what we believe.
Okay. Because that question of the relationship between the genders comes up in many religions, especially in questions of authority. Okay, let's see a few pictures now of your temples. Let's start with the Thai temple. Jazz, if you would show us now some slides of Dr. Timpajit's temple. And what's the name of the temple?
It's Wat Prasi Ratanaram, located at 890 Lindsay Lane in Florissant, Missouri.
Okay, and what does Prasi Ratanaram mean in English?
Wat means temple. Pra mean title for something venerable, venerate. Si mean beauty. Ratana mean gem, beautiful gem.
Beautiful
Wat
gem.
Prasi Ratanaram, beautiful gems. Temple of beautiful gem.
And the sign outside your temple?
You have the next slide.
Right.
This is just to show you where we locate 890 Lindsay Lane. And we have group meditation Saturday night, 7 to 9 p.m. Open to public, everyone welcome. But we have been closed for the past year during the COVID pandemic. We didn't want to infect the monks. So,
Right. Do you think eventually you'll get back in person?
oh, definitely. You can visit our website. There was several videos how to teach you how to meditate.
Okay. And inside the temple now?
So yeah, this is the abbot, Venerable Dr. Nikom Panyan, and that's the main Buddha statue at the top at the altar, residing in the main hall. Next. Yeah, this is our meditation room in the smaller altar, and the abbot was sitting there. Okay, next slide. And this is me accompanied by 2 other monks at Fo Kong Shan at one of the meetings that Fo Kong Shan graciously hosts. Thank you.
And so those monks come from Thailand in order to live
Correct.
here in St. Louis.
All of them were ordained in Thailand. They at least 10 to 15 years or more.
Okay. Thank you. And let's go to Fo Gong Shang, which is Venerable Jaewon's temple.
Oh, okay. Welcome to the temple of Fo Guang Shan St. Louis Buddhist Center. This is the sign of our temple.
So what does Fo Gong Shang mean?
Fo Guang Shan actually means a Buddha's light mountain. So actually our headquarters was up on the hill, a very hillside. So that is why we have it in our name. Yeah. And this is the outside of our temple. And without 2 willow trees, actually there is willow trees at the left hand side, but there is not yet planted. So it was a very, very old ones. And thank you for letting me seeing it. Okay, so next. Okay, so this is the big Buddha of our of the temple. Main shrine, and there is a closer look of that. Yes, this is a big Buddha. So the Buddha was actually is more like a fusion of Theravada and Mahayana Buddha. Okay, so next. Okay, so this is a ritual of one of our senior monk, Venerable Xin Ding, hosting an open house of our temple. Okay, so next, yes. So beside the Buddha, actually, we have a Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. That is his name, and we call it Guan Yin in Chinese. And this photo, actually, this statue, you can find in St. Louis Art Museum. So you can just go to the Asian department, and see this beautiful artifact. And so actually Guan Yin is very popular in Chinese. So not just Buddhist believes it, but also Taoist. So you might see Guan Yin in a Taoist temple, but actually this Guan Yin is from Buddhism. And Guan Yin actually means listening to or observing the sound or the voice, the sound of the people. So actually it depicts the vow of him trying to listen to the cry of people and rescue from the hardship of those who call for him. And this, interestingly, you might feel that this might not be a neutral sex, or it's not pretty like muscular or feminine. That is because in Guan Yin, actually, when in Song Dynasty, the Chinese actually made Guan Yin became a female figure. So actually, this might be a Tang Dynasty's earlier statue. So this is much more like a neutral gender statue of it. So this is really, really very interesting. So it's kind of like a transgender by the Chinese Buddhist of Guan Yin. Okay, so yeah, so you get so you go. I recommend every one of you go to St. Louis Art Museum to take a really good look at it. It is a very, very big one. Yeah, and very beautiful.
So a bodhisattva then would help all beings achieve enlightenment, right?
Yes. So bodhisattva actually, put it in simple, it is Buddha to be. So it's kind of like a PhD candidate. So PhD maybe is a Buddha, right? And then PhD candidate is we can call it bodhisattva. So a Buddha to be. Yeah.
And you'll have in-person prayer services eventually in your temple also?
Right now, no, we do the streaming of our service, but we are open for people to, kind of like for visit by appointment only. So,
okay.
So far, yeah, yes.
Now, Jazz, let's see some pictures of Rosan's temple, the Missouri Zen Center in Webster Groves. Okay, Rosan, so this is on Spring Avenue in Webster Groves, an older home, but you see a statue of the Buddha in the front yard. So that would let everybody know that they're at your temple. So what should people do when they go through the door?
Get in and sit together.
Okay.
Morning and evenings.
And in the back of the house, next slide then.
Pond for fish, goldfish, and water lily, hopefully lotus. On the second floor, we have the lotus picture.
So that's your Zen garden then? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then next slide is a picture of you in Zazen, in seated meditation?
As I said, this is a key practice to reach nirvana and awakening.
So this is in Soto Zen, just sit, as opposed to Rinzai Zen, where there are koans, right?
Right.
And what's a koan?
Koan is little like a question, and often from anecdotes of previous masters. So the later comers learn from those stories, anecdotes.
So a famous one I know is, what's the sound of one hand clapping?
Two hands, there's a clapping. Then one hand, no clapping. But you can hear in sitting, which is beyond phenomenal world of sense organ and sense object, where we stray around. So in sitting, you come back to the original state before dichotomy, no divisions, discriminations, just one universe.
And how many times a day and for how long do you sit?
We usually sit morning and evening, usually 40 minutes one session, and sometimes 2 sessions.
Okay. And the next slide is from the St. Louis Art Museum. There you have a sculpture.
Greek influence. In the beginning, there's no statues of the Buddha, only by a tree, Bodhi tree, under which he was awakened, is symbolizing the truth. Tree and truth came from the same root. Dri, enduring. Truth endures forever. Trees can endure 10,000 years. Or footprints, how he lived, always wandering, teaching people. But through the contact with Greeks, after Alexander the Great, they started to make Buddha's statues.
And this particular statue of Buddha's head, I think, gets across the feeling of serenity and peacefulness that the Buddha experienced in nirvana. And the next picture?
I think Kuan Yin is originally from the Buddha's action. There's a scripture, sutra, which describes the Buddha looking down, Avalokita, looking down the world with compassion and commiseration. That's why he spent all his life for people to save. The right hand is called semui, giving fearlessness for people who fear for death or whatever. The Buddha, or Kuan Yin, the opposite of the Buddha, gives fearlessness sign, hand mudra. Don't fear, don't be afraid.
Okay. And Jazz, then if we could see some pictures of a sand mandala. So Dr. Timpaget had talked about Tibetan Buddhism and how some Tibetan Buddhists make intricate patterns out of colored grains of sand. And several years ago, I asked Tibetan monks to come to St. Louis University in order to make a mandala. And this is the one they completed after several days. This would be a modern example of a mandala. In the center, you have symbols of all the major religions around the earth. and then different elements of nature, and then finally different symbols of Buddhism. So after putting all this together, then the next slide shows how they eventually then just sweep it all up into a pile of sand in order to stress how everything in life is impermanent and how something that beautiful can just be swept away. And then after they gather all the sand, next slide, they put it into jars and then they go to the nearest body of water. Next. And there you see on the board the design that they started off with, that they drew, and then they put all the different colored sands into that pattern. And then finally, then they dump that colored sand into the nearest body of water. And there you see they're wearing their ceremonial yellow hats and their gowns. Okay. There was just one question in the chat. Did Buddha marry and have children?
No. He was, when he was a crown prince, he was married to Yasodhara Pimpa. And they have a very happy life. I think he married when he was 16 up to 29 and have one son. And but he found that's not the true happiness. In fact, it created more bondage. So he left the palace, renunciated, and became enlightened, become Buddha, a new life. That's a new form of the enlightened being, no longer. But you need Siddhartha to become a Buddha. Once he became Buddha, he never got married again. He returned home 6 years later, and taught his wife and children, his child, his son, and Rahula is the name, mean bondage. He named him Rahula, bondage, and he ordered him as a novice and became enlightened at later age, in his teenage. Later on, he became enlightened as well, and was the supreme in terms obedient, in terms following the teaching. And his wife Pimpa, Yasodhara Pimpa, also attained enlightenment as well. His father also became enlightened. So the whole family, he reached his goal that he would seek for the truth and come to help them to reach the true happiness.
There's an interesting story about this. The stepmother, because a real mother died after the childbirth soon, the stepmother sent Rahula to the Buddha to inherit the fortune. And then the Buddha shaved Rahula's head, gave his, not fortune, but legacy.
Well. And the stepmother was so important because she was the first nun that started the female lineage. Ananda was able to persuade the Buddha to allow, because he asked the Buddha, would the female be able to be enlightened? He said, yes. So be it. They should be allowed.
Well, thank you all. I want to thank you for sharing with all of us how the teachings of the Buddha then have been able to guide your lives and how you've been able to spread Buddha's teachings to your community. Next week, then, we'll focus on another religion that began in India, Jainism. So I hope all of you can join us for that. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.